As a recovering millennial girl boss, rest is incredibly important to me. And it's something that I've had to learn the hard way through chronic illness, disability, and having a child. Recently, I learned about the 7 types of rest, and that little millennial girl boss in my brain, she's still there somewhere, was thinking, oh my goodness, I must do them all. The capitalist brain rot is real if you're thinking, how can I optimize my rest? And yet, here we are. But I was genuinely curious about what the 7 different types of rest were and how they exist in my life. There may be some areas that I want to improve, but that is not the name of the game. This is going to be more an exercise in observation and reflection. So I learned about this from an article on the Calm website, but it comes from this book called Sacred Rest by Dr. Sandra Dalton Smith. And as soon as I looked up this book, I was getting Christian vibes. Anyone else? First of all, the title, Sacred Rest, but the cover? Come on. So is this a Christian thing? We'll find out. It feels to me like it's something that you can apply across the board. I've not read the book, so maybe there are some more like heavy Christian messaging in the book, but it seems to have been universally applied. Not to state the obvious, but let's talk about why rest is important. Being able to rest properly helps you recover from stress. And if you are in a state of prolonged stress, that is what can lead to burnout, which I was coming very close to in 2023, which is why I quit half my job. But rest is not just about stopping or pausing an activity, it's about allowing your body and mind to get into a state where it can truly relax, whatever that means. It's no good going to the spa if you're just worrying about work the whole time you're there, or if your self-care day has a big long to-do list looking at no one in particular. This really reminds me of this TikTok I saw. I hate that that's even a sentence that I say these days, where this guy was saying that a rest day with a to-do list is not a rest day. I felt so called out. And that real rest is when your body feels safe enough that it can let go and just truly relax. The more that I think about it, that like form of like true relaxation and true rest, I don't know, the way that I'm thinking about it in my mind that is helpful is that it's another form of flow state. We talk about flow state a lot in like productivity of like getting in the flow. And now as soon as that's come out my mouth, I'm like, is that a bad analogy? Because it's applying like productivity stuff to rest, and that's not the fucking point. But with all that in mind, let's talk about the 7 different types of rest. So in this video, I'm going to talk through each one and I'm going to assess how they show up in my life and have some fun, do some resting, see if there's any areas that I want to improve or not, but just have a little chat about how each one of these shows up in my life and the different ways that I'm thinking about them and approaching them. Starting with physical rest.
Okay, so the first type of rest that we're going to be tackling is physical rest. And this doesn't just mean sleep, although let's talk about sleep. I am currently getting the best sleep that I have since Rowan was born. Like, we all know sleep is important, but let me tell you, when you have been as sleep deprived as a new mum with a newborn baby that will not sleep, that just wants to be attached at the breast the whole time, it hits home how important sleep is. 4 hours of sleep in one chunk, in one go, is the magic number to feel human. Just to feel anything. I remember when I was in the depths of it, if I got 4 hours, which was very unlikely, like in one go, I felt incredible after. Now that Rowan is 3.5, the bar is set a bit higher. So I track my temperature at night for fertility tracking reasons, but the app that I use also tracks my sleep. So I have data about my sleep. Oh yeah. So let's take a look. So let's just take a look at time asleep. And I am still getting interrupted in the night, like at least once, to collect Rowan and bring him into our bed, although sometimes Dan does that and I sleep through it. We kind of take it in turns, or whoever wakes up first. So 8 hours 7:43. Although I only got 7 hours and 43 minutes sleep, and yeah, sleep score a 99. That's because I was stupidly still awake around midnight, and that's when Rowan woke up to come into our bed. So 7 hours 30. 8 hours 16, 7:49, 7:55. Ooh, 6 hours 6. That was a late night. Was I out that night? I must have been. Why was I going to bed at 1:30 in the morning? Oh yeah, Be Creator Awards. I was out that night. 7:19, 7:17, 8:1, 7:56. Wow, okay, 7:55. This is interesting to me. I'm getting less sleep than I thought I was. I thought I was like an 8 to 9 hour girly, but it looks like I'm a 7.5 hour to an 8 hour girly, although maybe that's why I'm feeling so tired. I think one of the reasons why I'm getting a little bit less sleep than I feel like I personally need, obviously we're all different, is because Rowan is going to bed later too. And so I want to stay up later because I'm like, this is my time. Like if he's going to bed later, then that just eats into the like alone, grown up, just chill, no work responsibilities, no parenting responsibilities, just like watch some TV, read a book, like downtime. So in order to get more of that time, I'm staying up later. But if I'm being honest, I'm actually just scrolling on TikTok in bed for far too long. And that is something that I definitely want to stop doing, but we will come to that when we get to sensory rest. And then hopefully it all combines and gets me more sleep too. So sleep is obviously a big part of physical rest. Some of the other things that the article mentioned were just lying down. Love that. Just lying down. Gentle movement like yoga and also walking. Walking. And this is a great excuse for me to get my walking game back on because my commute is gone. I used to walk for an hour every day going to and from Rowan's childminders. Alas, his primary school is much closer to our house, so that walking time has gone. And so I'm not walking as much, and I can see it on the app with the steps thing. If you want to get your 10,000 steps a day or not, whatever, you do you. I'm more comparing the amount of steps that I've done myself to my past self, if that makes sense. So this is the last 6 months. Obviously, we see spikes in summer. We're outside more, we're walking more. So there is a dip in September and October. However, let's go to months. So now we can see each month. June, July, August, almost 11,000 steps on average daily. May is super low because I was ill for like a week and a half and just in bed. So this is September and October, much lower than the summer. But if we compare it to September and October last year, look, 11,000. Over 10,000. So my steps have gone down. Now I don't really want to focus on the numbers of it all, but I just thought it would be interesting to actually see is what I think happening, which is that, yeah, I'm walking less, obviously. So I want to start going for a walk after I drop Rowan off and before I start work. Not every day, some days. Obviously the weather is weathering, and if it's raining, I'm not going to do it. But I did it for the first time this morning, and so let's try and make a habit of it. From my post drop-off walk through the park. It was great. It's taken me almost an entire half term to do that, but it makes sense because the last 14 years of my life have been all about building in structures of accountability through making content. But that walk was a lot faster as well than I was expecting. I got back home just before 10 and I even nipped into the shop to pick up a couple of things that I needed on the way back too. And yesterday was a big stressy day in terms of like juggling a lot of things and thinking about a lot of things and being like, oh God, this is the epic to-do list between now and the end of the year. And I could have just come home, started work, be like, go, 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 go. But I needed that. I needed that for my body and my brain. Walking, would recommend.
Okay, physical rest update. Did I go on a single walk post drop off after filming that clip? No, I did not. Even though I had a lovely time, but the weather has been shite. It's the wrong time of year, not just in terms of weather, but my workload massively increases this time of year. So I'm hoping maybe come spring, it becomes more of a habit. I don't know, but it hasn't felt super urgent to me, even though I do still miss my walking and audiobook listening time. Maybe I need to think about that come 2026. The brain cannot right now. But I want to have a look at my steps. Okay, yes, as we can see, my average daily steps has massively gone down September, October, and again in November. It's only the 2nd of December when I'm actually recording this, so we don't have full December data yet. But that could just be the seasons changing, being out and about and walking around less, because you can see that June, July, and August are higher than all of the other months before it. So maybe I don't need to worry about my steps. Maybe it's fine. Okay, sleep update incoming, but we need to talk about sensory rest first.
So sensory rest is all about reducing the strain on your senses. This can be from bright lights, noises, screens. For me, the kind of sensory rest that I want to tackle is sensory rest from my phone in the evenings. Lately, I have just been scrolling on TikTok until like 11:30 at night, and I do not want to be doing that at all. No, thank you.
My new alarm clock has arrived with the hopes of me not using my phone as my alarm, and so therefore not scrolling on my phone for ages before I go to sleep. My body and mind need the sensory rest. It's a gloomy sunrise alarm. I think it's all set up. That took me a while. I don't know if this is going to be good for me. Basically what I was looking for was a silent alarm, because my alarm doesn't make a noise. I set my phone to vibrate in the morning and that wakes me up fine. But the only silent alarms that I could find are these like sunrise alarms, but Rowan often ends up in here in the mornings, and I think that the light in the morning is more likely to wake him up than a sound alarm, if that makes sense. So I'm not super excited about it. Why did I buy this again? It takes 30 minutes for the sun to rise, but I don't know if it's going to rise as a white light, although I've got it on really low now, or like one of these bright colour lights, but I want it orange. That doesn't actually set it, the sunrise to orange. I don't know. We'll find out in the morning what the light does. I don't know what it's gonna do. Oh, and then I need to pick a sound. Although I actually don't want any sound. How do I pick no sound? Some birdies, some goats, froggies, fucking pigs, and then a beep. Because of the 30-minute thing, I've actually set my alarm later than I normally would. So in theory, I'll be awake anyway, and we'll all be awake anyway before it's at its brightest. I'm already regretting this purchase, but we'll see. At least I won't use my phone this evening because I'm too busy deep into catching fire. Night night. Good morning. I hate everything about it. It just does not work for my lifestyle, for how we sleep in this family, how we wake up in this family. It is not the one that is going to help me reduce my sensory input. So back to the drawing board.
Round 2 of our little alarm clock from John Lewis. It's tiny. This is good. A lot of the reviews said it was smaller than I expected, and I was like, bingo, I want a small one. All right, let's do it. Da 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 da. Okay, I need 2 AA batteries. Be right back. Do you know what? In the nights since I returned the Lumi and this one arriving, I have been terrible at my sensory rest, also just sleep in general. It's like my body went, well, your new alarm clock is arriving in a few days, so you've got a couple of nights to be completely irresponsible. I did notice that there were also a lot of reviews being like, it's really hard to set up and there are no instructions. And they would be correct. Right, what are we doing? Let's just press buttons. Right, alarm. No, we don't want that. We're getting somewhere. We're getting somewhere. We're getting somewhere. Oh, hello. Right, what's the time? I will report back. Wait, I still don't know how to set an alarm on this thing though. Wish it didn't make this beeping sound when you're like setting an alarm. There we go. Set. Okay, and then hopefully that will stop me from scrolling on TikTok until 11:30 at night when I need more sleep than that.
Here she is, my precious alarm clock. I love her. It is so basic and functional. This is the noise that it makes in the morning. That's nice, right? It's a good level. Like Rowan is usually asleep in bed next to me and it doesn't wake him up. So that's great. It's got the snooze light. Perfect, need that. I'm able to set 2 alarms on it. So I have my 7:30 alarm that's just like my daily alarm. And then I use the second alarm if I've got something else. So I never change the 7:31. Alarm 2 is the one that gets changed depending on, like, I've got a flight I need to catch to Dublin at a stupid hour in the morning. But has this worked in terms of reducing my phone usage in bed at night? Do you know what we didn't check? We didn't check screen time before. That might have been helpful, but that's not super helpful actually when my job is so much on screen, so there's like lots of different variables there. But I have felt resistance. So I'll be on my phone whilst getting ready for bed, maybe checking messages, maybe scrolling, maybe just listening to an audiobook whilst I'm brushing my teeth, yada, yada, yada. And then at some point, I have to make the executive decision to put my phone away on charge on the other side of the room and get into bed. And that doesn't always happen. Sometimes I get into bed with my phone, and then at some point I have to make the executive decision to get out of bed again, put my phone on charge and get back into bed. But it does force me to make the decision, which I like, because I don't have a phone charger by my bed, so I can't have my phone by my bed. The other main resistance that I have to it is that I like updating my story graph stats, like how many pages or hours that I've listened to that day of my books right before I go to bed. But say if I'm reading in bed, then I can't do that. I have to keep my phone by my bed, and then my phone's by my bed, and it's very tempting. So what I've done in those cases is I've just accepted that my Storygraph stats are just going to be inaccurate. And that's fine. I will update it to the point at which I get into bed, and then I put my phone away. And then if I do any more audiobook listening, or if I do any more book reading, then I'll just log that on Storygraph the next day. And I can change the date. This is the thing, Storygraph lets you change the dates if I can be bothered. So that doesn't really feel as much of an obstacle as maybe I've like made it out in my mind. Here's the thing, am I going to sleep earlier because of this? Because I'm not caught scrolling on my phone? Let's find out. Because I have a hunch that I'm not going to sleep any earlier, but that time is being taken up by book reading time rather than phone scrolling time, which isn't a bad thing. In fact, great. Let's have a look. I should really have taken averages. I can't remember what I even said before. Last night, went to bed, fell asleep 23:17, but like still got almost 8 hours sleep. Look at that. Fell asleep before 11. Oh, fell asleep just before midnight. But I still got over 8 hours sleep. Got 9 hours sleep and went to bed like 11:30. Oh, that was the weekend. And Rowan also woke up at 9 a.m. We have a toddler who sleeps in. Here you go. That's more of a normal one. Went to bed just after 11, just under 8 hours sleep. Like, this is all great. Just after 11. Do you know what? Like, that one's a bit earlier, but still. And again, fell asleep 11:25, but still got over 8 hours sleep. Sleep score of 91. I think this has been a real win. I think there's still room for improvement. What I really want to do is not be scrolling social media when I'm getting ready for bed. I just want to have that be audiobook listening time. But usually that depends on if I've got a good audiobook on the go or if I'm between audiobooks. But yes, my trusty alarm clock. The only thing that I'm worried about this thing is because it's battery powered. Like, what happens if the batteries run out in the middle of the night before your alarm goes off? I don't know. We've not got to that stage yet. I'm hoping that it maybe gives you a little warning at least 24 hours before the battery's gonna die. But I don't know, because it's like a very basic alarm clock. So fingers crossed.
Next up is emotional rest, which when I was first reading about, I was really struggling with how to do this for the video, and also just struggling to think of examples in my life. So emotional rest is allowing yourself to feel and express your emotions in a healthy way. So you're not resting emotionally if you're bottling everything up and keeping everything inside. That's, takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of effort. And even though it seems hard and vulnerable, the thing that helps you rest emotionally is letting it out in a healthy way. It's about being honest, about seeking support if you need it, and also stepping away from emotionally draining situations. I was thinking about this, and then I remembered that recently Dan and I had a little relationship check-in. And whilst I wasn't thinking, we need a relationship check-in so I can emotionally rest, that wasn't what was going through my mind. I was like, there's some things that I want to talk about that's going on in our lives, like how things have changed recently, or like things that are going on in our internal lives as well. Because like when you're parents, you can often be like ships in the night and you struggle to find that time to connect. So we intentionally like found this moment to kind of like talk about our relationship and also just like talk about what's going on for each of us individually in our like own internal emotional lives. And I remember like after that conversation, just like feeling so light, just feeling like, and I didn't quite realize beforehand how tense I was. And so there we go. That was me doing a thing to help with my emotional rest. I feel like emotional rest is something that we should probably all be doing constantly. I recently read All About Love by Bell Hooks, and there's a really great chapter in that about honesty, and it did make me realize just like how often we just tell little lies in our life. I mean, the classic is like, how are you? I'm good. How are you? When you're not good. So I think with emotional rest, whilst yes, an event like a relationship check-in can be really good, but what we kind of need to be practicing on a more like constant daily basis is just allowing yourselves to feel those things, express those feelings in a healthy way during our days. Little challenge for me and maybe for you, when someone asks you, how are you? Tell the truth. Tell the truth. See what happens. That's quite scary. The next type of rest is mental rest. And this is essentially giving your mind a break from endless activity. I think maybe the first thing that people think of when it comes to mental rest is something like meditation, but it doesn't have to be that, although if you do that, great, good for you. I've never been able to really keep a habit of it, but alas. It could be taking breaks during your workday, also engaging in hobbies that let your mind wander. I think this is more where I land with mental rest. And one hobby in particular at the moment. Let me show you. Here is a 6,000 piece Lego set. It's Rivendell from Lord of the Rings. Granted, this one I did with my husband Dan, but the process was still very mentally restful. We weren't exactly talking the entire time, but I got some more. Lego flowers. These were my gateway drug into Lego. Dan got me these for my birthday one year, and the Lego has been piling up in the flat ever since. I have a Lego Elphaba and Glinda bookends. And these ones were probably less mentally restful to do because Rowan was getting involved, but still gorgeous. It's not just Lego, but that's the best example that I have in my life right now. But for me, I feel like mental rest comes when I'm doing something tactile with my hands that doesn't require a lot of like mental strain. So it could be like following the instructions of doing Lego, or this weekend, for instance, I need to paint Rowan's bedroom door. And anytime we've done any painting in the flat, like all the walls and decoration that we've done, just painting, sticking on like an audiobook or music and just like doing the painting, I feel like it's quite mentally restful for me. And I've not done it in a while, but like I also love those like intricate like adult colouring in books and things. I think that like scratches that same itch and gives me that same mental rest. So I feel like as long as I keep up my Lego habit, then I feel pretty good about being able to access mental rest when I need it, even without meditation. Good morning. Today we're going to try and get some creative rest at a tufting workshop. I am going to make a rainbow rug for this little one's bedroom. You excited about your rainbow rug, Ro?
Yeah. Okay. Happy birthday to you. Oh.
here she is. Here's the finished product. That was a great creative workshop and was somewhat creatively restful, but actually I have an entirely unplanned example of something that really felt very creatively restful for me. And that is the week where I went a bit mad and hustled really hard to get an invite to the Wicked premiere. It was something about having a very clear mission in mind, like caring a lot about it, but also just having no control and just being like, I'm just gonna do what I can and the universe, the Greg's gods will decide my fate. And I had so much fun that week making all of the content. The outfits video, the song tier ranking stuff, like decorating my stoma bag, like doing some drawing, like sitting doing some drawing, learning the dance routine to What Is This Feeling? And then also the creative process of editing them all and just having this like creative momentum and feeling like I had some sort of like creative purpose. But also creative ideas generation felt so much easier because I had these constraints. I was like, I have to make content about Wicked. Okay, what can I do that is a bit desperate, a bit silly, shows my love and passion for Wicked, like all of these things. And I came out of that week just being like, oh wow, if I had the time to be a full-time short form creator, I feel like I would have more creative energy to spend on that. I don't know if you noticed, but since the Wicked premiere, I have not been very active on Reels or creating short form video because one, I've been very occupied with Vlognica videos, but I also haven't had those same creative restraints where you're like, I need to make a video about this thing or this is the format. So it was very interesting to me. It was so fun, but also, yeah, interesting in a way of like, oh, I can do it. One, I just need lots more time and like freedom to play, but the constraint, the container, the creative container was also very useful. And I just had so much creative fun. That week of hustling and then also making all of the videos revealing that we were at the premiere and all of the fun stuff that we created around that, like the ideas for that and then also editing them, that was just a real joy for me all round. And not just because it was Wicked, but also this was great. It was all great.
Next up is social rest. So this is all about building stronger, more fulfilling relationships. And this is definitely something that feels like a priority for me in my life right now. Just in terms of spending in-person time with my friends as much as possible around work and parenting and everything else, yada, yada, yada. I'm also a massive extrovert who works for herself alone at home the vast majority of the time. There was a week recently where Dan, my husband, was away for work and I tried to organize something with friends, like at least one of the evenings whilst he was away, but it was like quite a last minute work trip. And so I couldn't wrangle it and I went a bit mad. It was not socially restful for me that week. Although, as we have heard, it was a very creatively restful week because that was the week where I went really hard making lots of fun Wicked related video content. So you can't have it all, can you? But I would say in general, as someone who does have a 3.5-year-old, I'm pretty well socially rested. And that probably is thanks to having a very active co-parent. And so I'm able to go out without my child and see my friends and go to Ireland for a whole weekend to see one of my best friends. That was definitely not a physically restful weekend, but definitely socially restful. And then another exciting development in my social life. It feels very vulnerable, and I have mentioned this before, just even saying out loud that I'm like trying to make friends or like trying to see my friends more. I've always grown up under the impression that friendships just happen naturally. And now as a grown-up, I'm like, oh no, that is not the case. And so it does feel a bit vulnerable to be sharing in a YouTube video things that I've done to like actually try and put effort into making friends and seeing my friends. But that's the way, guys. That is it. There's nothing shameful or weird about that. That's actually cool. That's actually cool. But I met up with a mum friend of mine recently, one-on-one, no children. It was the first time we have hung out like that since we've known each other, which is about 3.5, 4 years, because we met when pregnant. And we just chatted for hours. I don't even know how long I was out for. And we were able to talk about things and share in a way that we haven't been able to before because of, you know, the constraints of having children around you, or because, you know, conversations have never been able to go as deep. And again, feels vulnerable to say, but this was one of those times with a friend where you're like, oh, have we gone to like the next layer, the next level of friendship? She says out loud, feeling very silly. And actually, after hanging out with her, it made me realize how like dating, making new friends and developing new friendships and relationships is. And I've not dated in a while. And it's not instinctual to me to like text my friends after every time we hang out, but it just felt like it was necessary in this case of doing it like we were dating, like had such a lovely time, like let's do it again sometime. It's like dating. Anyway, now I feel very embarrassed, but socially rested, very socially rested. I also think what makes me socially rested now in my 30s, being a mum, is very different to what was socially restful for me in my 20s. So it is for me more now about actually like developing deeper, stronger friendships and connections with people. Whereas before I would have felt socially rested if I'd have gone to lots of parties and seen lots of acquaintances, that kind of like broad but shallow connections. Whereas now it's like narrow and deep is what I'm going for, you know? But it is still hard because I do find that the few friends I have that I already have those deep connections with, or I want to develop them, it's like maybe you get a chance to do that once every 3 months. Why? But we're getting there. So I don't know what that answer to that is. It's either socialize more and be out more, which I don't really have the capacity to do, or have less friends, which I don't want to do. But is this just kind of how it is? I would love to hear if you've got any creative ideas of like how you stay in touch with mates in between seeing each other, like in between the catch-ups. What do you do to actually stay abreast of like what is going on in your friends' lives? So the 7th and last type of rest is the one when I first read it, I struggled with the most to figure out how that would apply to me, because it is spiritual rest. And it is no secret that I am very much not a religious person. I'm a staunch atheist. That may confuse you because of the whole Jew thing. I'm very culturally, secularly Jewish, but there's honestly not a religious bone in my body. And I have very much conflated spiritual and religious in my head. I've been trying to untangle that over the years, but then even things that are deemed spiritual but not religious, I also struggle with, because that's when I feel like it gets a bit woo-woo, which I also feel a bit uncomfortable around. This is all me, guys. This is all me. But again, I've been trying to untangle those connections. Maybe I need a better word for it than spiritual, because I just do not feel very connected to the word spiritual. But this article on Calm that was about the 7 different types of rest, the way that explained it, I was like, oh, that makes sense. And it described it as finding meaning and purpose beyond your daily routines. And this I can get behind. And when I really started to dig into what brought meaning and purpose to my life, and also activities that make you feel connected to something greater than yourself. And so for some people, yeah, that might be religion, that might be a connection to God, or through like new age spirituality stuff, it might be a connection to the universe or whatever it might be. And so I was really trying to dig into what are the things, when are the moments when I feel like I am part of something greater than myself, because that is a feeling that can be universal. That is not something that is only for people who believe in God or people who believe in astrology. And so funnily enough, one of the things for me was actually hosting Shabbat. But for me, and I've explained this many a times, my Jewishness is about feeling connected to my family and my ancestors and history and tradition and all of that, and being part of something beyond just me. And so I bought some candle holders on Vinted, and I did a little Shabbat just at home, me, Dan and Rowan. And then a few weeks later, a friend, a Christian friend in fact, who expressed an interest, she was like, I've never done a Shabbat before, like I'd love to come over. And I was like, well, it's not going to be very official, but I would love to host you. And so that was really lovely. And there was also something that I found quite moving about it, even though it was like a very hodgepodge little, like, do the prayers and songs and light the candles. We had some challah, didn't even have any Kiddush wine. But there was something about sharing something that felt really personal and important to me, and something that was part of my childhood with a friend that felt really good, and it felt really special. And then I told her stories about like my childhood and how we would do Shabbos like as a family, and how my parents created this thing called the Shabbos fairy that would leave us sweets underneath the cloth that covered the challah. So that felt really special, and I'd love to do more Friday night Shabbos. What is this? Lighting the candles. And then another thing that I thought of that definitely ticks this box of spiritual rest for me, even though I would say mentally, emotionally, physically, it is not restful, but that's why we've got all of these different kinds of rest. And that is hosting our coffee mornings, because we do this for ourselves and also for local parents. And it just feels good to like open the doors of our home and just say, hey, open house. People come over with your kids. And I love playing host. It's absolute carnage, but it feels important. And people always say such lovely things about how, oh, we never get together like beyond the school gates. And so, you know, like thanking us and saying it's really nice to host something like that. And so that makes me feel part of something bigger, like this local community and other parents and the school community and all of that kind of stuff. And so I definitely think our coffee mornings for me feel like a ritual that is part of my spiritual rest. And then after that, it gets a bit hazy. There's like a small business networking group that I'm a part of, and we meet monthly. And that feels like some kind of similar thing going on, I think, because it's like a monthly commitment. We all show up, there's a group of us, and we're all getting to know each other. Like there's something about that that feels, you know, like being a part of something that's bigger than myself, because we're all, you know, we all show up for each other and we support each other. So I feel like there's lots of things that could fit into spiritual rest that, yeah, aren't religious, new agey. But those are the main ones that would stick out for me. I feel like if I had time to do like volunteering, or if you're someone who goes to a lot of protests, like that may be like a form of spiritual rest for you, even though it is like action and doing things. Something definitely kind of like switched in my brain when I really started to think about it, because it does feel good. There is something that is restful to the soul. Like if we're thinking about resting all these different parts of our bodies and minds and feelings, spiritual rest is restful for the soul. Not that I believe in like a soul, but that's the best language that I have to describe it.
So those are the 7 types of rest: physical, sensory, mental, emotional, creative, social, and spiritual. I would love to hear in the comments how you try and get your different kinds of rest, if any of these are new to you. The thing is that we probably all do all of these different types of rest, even if we hadn't previously thought about what we were doing as rest. I think because we assume that rest is just, you know, doing nothing, lying on the sofa, or self-care kind of rest. But there are types of rest that are incredibly active as well. Like that tufting workshop, that really hurt my back, but still creatively restful. So yeah, there might be things that are creatively restful, but not physically restful, or things that are really socially restful, but they are not sensory restful. And so that's why I really like this framework of understanding the different types of rest, so you can just make sure that you're getting a little sprinkling of all of them, or you can at least recognize where one might be suffering, rather than just thinking, oh, I'm so stressed, I'm so tired, I just must need a day of rest, a day off, and you spend a day doing nothing, like watching TV or whatever it might be, but then you're still really stressed and tired the next day. And it might just be because you haven't rested in the way that you needed to rest. An example from my husband: he had a stressful week at work, went out for after work drinks on the Friday and some spontaneous karaoke, and my husband loves some karaoke, as do I. Do we ever get to do karaoke together? No. And the following day, instead of feeling really tired and hungover, he felt amazing. He was like, I feel so light, all the stress is gone. And it's because through karaoke, through that feeling so relaxed that you're able to let go in whatever way, shape or form that is for you. And karaoke for him and for me in many ways is a way that I can let go and that he can let go. And so that was restful for him, even though it involved staying up really late. And I had a very similar experience recently too. Karaoke again in Dublin with some of my friends, and didn't get home until 3 a.m. and was obviously absolutely exhausted. But my goodness, did I need to get that out of my system. I don't know what kind of rest is karaoke. It's social for sure. I would say like physical and also creative because you're singing. Maybe emotional. Karaoke ticks a lot of boxes of rest for me. And I'm totally sober doing karaoke, but it definitely meets that criteria of allowing my body and mind to relax enough that I can let the fuck go. Anyway, a little karaoke tangent for you at the end. Let me know in the comments what you do truly to relax. When your body and your mind feel safe, you're able to let go and feel properly rested and rejuvenated, at least in one capacity. I'm very interested to hear what other people's rest looks like, and maybe we can get ideas from each other too. Thank you for watching. If you didn't know, I'm making 8 videos for the 8 days of Hanukkah right now, and so I'll see you in another one tomorrow, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. Bye!